Okay, for more on the importance of President Biden's speech tonight, let's go to Allison M. Prasch, Associate Professor of Communication Arts at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Allison, thanks so much for coming on today. We appreciate it. I know that you've studied the power of presidential speeches from George Washington to present day here. What do you think history can tell us about how President Biden can make this speech an extraordinary one?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. We know that President Biden is going to speak tonight from the Oval Office, and history shows us that previous presidents previous to Biden, have used this backdrop, this setting, to communicate really important moments and to speak directly to the American people. So, for example, we can think about Ronald Reagan and his decision to speak from the Oval Office in the aftermath of the Challenger disaster, or when George W. Bush spoke on the evening of 9/11 to comfort a grieving nation. And so, in both those cases, these presidents really sought to unify the public. And in those instances, it was in moments of national tragedy. I think what Biden needs to do this evening is to provide an explanation to the U.S. public of why he's not seeking reelection, and then to call the public to really engage in their democracy in the coming days and weeks as we look forward to this presidential contest. He really needs to speak from the position of a president, not as a campaigner for either side, but really seek to address the problems facing the nation, and also talking about how he's going to uphold his constitutional oath over the next 6 months.
Allison, I want to go back in time for a moment to 1968 and listen to one of our former presidents, LBJ. Take a listen.
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
Allison, talk to us about how LBJ's speech, how that shaped the moment. And do you think President Biden's speech may differ from other speeches where a politician faced a potential end of the road?
Yeah, well, the example of 1968 is a really good one. It's on March 31st, 1968, that Lyndon Johnson announces that he will not seek the Democratic nomination for president. At that time, the primaries were still going on. Johnson was the assumed nominee, but it's obviously much earlier in the campaign season than Biden was doing. I think it's important to note that later on in that speech, from the clip that you just played, is that Johnson offers the reason of why he's not running, and he says, "I believe that my duties as president really are more essential than engaging in partisan politics." And so I think we can see some parallels here with Biden. Now we know, of course, that Biden was facing really difficult polling numbers, particularly after his disastrous debate performance in late June. And so I think for Biden, he needs to both explain why he's dropping out, but then also, again, seek to unify the nation to the best that he can. I think it's important to note that we obviously know we're living in a very politically divided moment. But I do think that Biden has the opportunity to speak to all Americans, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, about the future of the country that he believes can exist. And really, as he passes the baton to a new generation of political leadership, providing a space and a vision that all Americans can see themselves in, not just one that is directed toward a political party.
Allison, almost out of time here, but really, how important is this speech, and do you expect any surprises?
I think I would argue it could be the most consequential of Biden's lengthy political career. In terms of surprises, I've learned to stop predicting that there will be no surprises, because I think, if anything, the last few weeks has taught us that. But I do think Biden has the opportunity to rise to the moment, and I think it remains to be seen if he will tonight. But I think it really could be the most consequential speech that he has ever delivered.
Allison, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your insights.
Yeah, thanks for having me.